we'll get to our picks soon now. I mean, Florida Ole Miss, we're going to break it down, predict it. Very tough game for me. Bit easier for you. Where do you want to start with this one?
I just want to say, I'll say what I said to you when we were off air, that I do think this is the best. This is potentially the best team Florida's played this year. And I think it is potentially the toughest matchup for Florida. I think the teams that you've seen Florida have success against are, teams like Georgia that are, just straight up struggling on offense. They didn't as much last night. Maybe they've sort of gotten their stuff together again on that side of the ball, but had a really rough stretch offensively. Kentucky, nightmarish offensively. UCF having a lot of issues. And even LSU has sort of recently struggled. This Ole Miss team, I think, is pretty complete across the board. Maybe not the best rushing offense, but I think Jackson Dart's having a really good season. I mean, has been statistically the best quarterback in the SEC this year.
Yeah.
I think that defensively they can do things up front that certainly LSU can't. I mean, I think this front four will probably be kind of maybe alongside a Texas or Georgia, the toughest that the Gators have played this year. So I don't want to rain on the parade here. I think that Florida has taken significant strides, and I come into this game thinking that they have a real chance to win, which I didn't think was the case not too long ago. I do think, though, I want to caution in being everything's fixed. We beat LSU.
Yep.
LSU is a team. I've followed this team for a while now, covering them with my previous job. But I think that this has kind of been a steady collapse for them over these last few weeks. And so that's why, even though I picked LSU, I'm certainly not shocked that Florida won that game. I would be a lot more surprised if Florida comes out and plays well enough to win this game. Though, again, I don't think they're going to get killed. I don't think this is going to be an embarrassing beatdown like the Miami and A&M games were. Mm-hmm. I still think it's a big ask for where this program's at right now, and more importantly, what they're missing.
I'm going to ask. Last week, you said in a close game, based on coaching, you'd favor LSU, but based on players, you'd favor Florida. How do you look at that in this Florida Ole Miss game? Jackson Dart, he's a good QB. I'm not going to discredit him for anything. But we haven't really seen him win. He's not had. Their two closest games were their losses. They lost to LSU in overtime, and they lost 20-17 to Kentucky. Can Jackson Dart handle the pressure of a close game if Florida can keep it close?
Yeah, I think that's maybe a little bit of a different dynamic because I think LSU we had seen kind of survive and win some close games this year. They did it against South Carolina. They did it against Arkansas, sort of to an extent. Yeah, Ole Miss, obviously Ole Miss. So I think that's a little bit different. I will say, Ole Miss, you're right. They've, in a few different situations this year, they've had opportunities to close out games and haven't been able to do it. Kentucky, just incredibly unlikely way to lose a game. You give up 50 yards on a 4th and 7, to set up. A game would have been over if you just knocked that ball down.
That's true.
And then LSU, they led that game pretty much the entire way.
They literally led it every single second of that game. There was not a second they were trailing in that game.
Yeah. So, they've definitely squandered a lot of games, and that, I think this team is good enough to be undefeated right now. I think this team, I don't consider it a disappointment in a way, because I think at its best, it's looked as good as advertised. We just haven't necessarily seen it at its best all the time. So I would maybe say it's almost the reversal. I think Ole Miss is clearly the more talented team, but I will say, maybe I do now have a little bit more faith in the Gators with DJ Lagway. We've seen DJ Lagway, clutch drive to send the game against Tennessee to overtime. Obviously helped finish the game out yesterday. So I think you could maybe make that case, although I still do think talent-wise, this is a significant step up from LSU.
What would you say Ole Miss's weakness? Just a quick answer. What is Ole Miss's weakness on offense?
I think their ability to run the ball. They lost a lot with Quinshon Judkins leaving.
What would you? Okay, so their offensive line in general, really.
Yeah, you could probably say that.
What would you say Florida's strength is right now on defense?
Yeah, it's certainly, getting pressure on the quarterback. Yeah.
That might be the story of this game. If Florida can get enough pressure to make Jackson Dart make some mistakes, not be able to sit comfortably in the pocket and make those easy, I won't say easy throws, but make those throws that Lane Kiffin can make open for him with his scheme. That's really the textbook place for this Ole Miss offense, is just letting Jackson Dart be comfortable, not do anything crazy. And maybe we saw it last year, actually, or the year before. Jackson Dart did have some good plays against LSU. They beat him last year in a high-scoring game. So we have seen Dart have some big clutch moments, but has he done it against a defensive line like ours that 7 sacks in this previous game? Don't really count Texas for too much. Got pressure on Carson Beck, ton of pressure on Kentucky, ton of pressure on UCF.
Mm-hmm.
And this Ole Miss offensive line has been hurt, so you can give it a little bit of credit. And they got a bit healthier. We saw against Georgia. Their offense, Georgia's a really good defense. So scoring 28 points on Georgia is, you can celebrate that like as much as you can celebrate really anything in college football. So give them credit there. But it's not necessarily the best offense in the country that like we would expect from Ole Miss. I think their offense has been way more disappointing. Well, their defense hasn't been disappointing at all. It's been spectacular, actually. But their offense has been probably disappointing. I mean, if their offense plays better against Kentucky, they can't score only 17 points against Kentucky. I mean, we scored 49 against them. 23 points against this LSU defense. And we've seen LSU maybe not be the best defense. I think you still can worry about that Ole Miss offense.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to come out and drop like 40 points in this game. I certainly don't think that's about to happen. I do just worry a little bit about, like, I think Florida's still vulnerable in the secondary, right? I think we saw that a little bit, on the one play where Aaron Anderson kind of just got behind everybody on their sort of one big play touchdown. But the fact of the matter is LSU doesn't really have that vertical threat at receiver. They kind of have one in Chris Hilton, who's back into the fold after injury earlier in the year, and he had deep ball right in his hands in the end zone and dropped it. So I think that there is the potential there for big plays for Ole Miss. And I think LSU just really has struggled to capitalize on that this year, because they don't run the ball and they don't have a Malik Neighbors and they don't have a Brian Thomas Jr. anymore, who can really just take the top off the defense. So, and I think, between guys like Trey Harris, Juice Wells, like I think Ole Miss maybe can do that. So that would be my concern. I agree with you. I think we have the chance to get a lot of pressure on Jackson Dart and cause some havoc, and he will turn the ball over. He's proven throughout his career he's prone to turn the ball over. So I wouldn't be shocked to see the defense get a pick or something, or pick or two in this game, and kind of get some chaos the way they did against Nussmeier. That's just what I worry about, is just getting kind of the top taken off you, and LSU couldn't really do that.
I'm going to assume Trey Harris plays in this game. I know he's been hurt throughout this past month or so.
Yeah, he's been banged up for a while.
They've had the bye week though. I don't think he played against Georgia, did he?
I don't believe so, but I don't quote me on that.
But I think with the bye week, Lane might have something to prove against Florida. That Trey Harris is going to be back. The next thing I want to question about this Ole Miss defense. This is probably the best Ole Miss defense we've seen since they had Hugh Freeze. What passing offense have we seen Ole Miss play? LSU?
Yeah, that's a fair point. LSU's probably the best one. You're looking at Georgia, which it can be good. They were good yesterday. Beck had a really good game last night. He bounced back nicely. So, but yeah, you're right about that for sure. I don't know if I'd call Florida a great passing offense, though, at this point. I think it's one that's capable of doing good things, but it's not consistently good is kind of my problem.
And with the pressure, the key to this game might just be if Lagway can be healthy enough to scramble, avoid a sack from Princely, avoid a sack from Walter Nola, and avoid pressure from JP Piguez. And the linebackers, Sertain Perkins, they bringing him on delayed blitz. He's really good at that. Former 5-star kid. And Chris Paul, their leading tackler. So there's definitely things that they're going to have to avoid. And if Lagway is as immobile, I mean, LSU, I'm pretty sure, was top 10 in the country in sack rate success going into that game, and they had 0 on Lagway. But Ole Miss is obviously a more talented pass rushing unit. They're going to convert on at least a couple of them, especially if Lagway is still as immobile as he was. I also do want to see how Florida can run the ball against Ole Miss because, I mean, on a per yards basis, we were good against LSU, good against Texas, good against Georgia. The run game has been really solid throughout this past, 2 months maybe. So got to give them a bit of credit there. I think it's going to be a really fun matchup there to see. I mean, especially the team against Princely. He transferred away. Big storyline, the Georgia game was ETN transferring away to a rival. Now we have the big storyline of Princely transferring to not necessarily a rival, but a team on the schedule still. So I wonder if the offensive line is going to have something to prove against him. The running backs might have something to prove against him because one of his biggest flaws or gripes that Gator fans had was his run defense not necessarily being that good. It's been better graded-wise at Ole Miss. So maybe he has improved, or I don't know, maybe things have just gone differently at Ole Miss to where it looks better. But it will be interesting to see that matchup, especially in the run game.
Yeah, and I was going to say you kind of hit on it, like even a little bit there. But Princely, also a guy who took his fair share of criticism from Gator fans. So maybe it's personal in both, or a little bit in both directions there. Certainly interesting. I mean, I think we'll kind of get an idea of who had the who got the last laugh there. You know what I mean? Prince is having a nice season. We'll just kind of see, Florida. I think, with Trevor Etienne, I mean, I saw a stat comparison today, like Jaden Ball and Trevor Etienne have identical numbers basically. So
they're one less yard for Ball.
Yeah.
They had the same carries, same touchdowns, one less yard for Ball. That's impressive.
Who wasn't the primary running back for the first half of the season.
Etienne also has missed like 3-4 games this year.
He has. But I think, I don't think they're necessarily missing that kind of production. So
no,
we'll kind of see if we get our own version of that with Princely, like getting held to 2 tackles and no sacks or something like that.
That would be nice. But it's time for you to make your prediction. What do you got?
Oh man, I hate to do this. I really hate to do this because I've been so negative throughout this season. And I actually am kind of coming around. Like I still have my questions, but I can see the vision. Like I'm starting to be optimistic. I can see the vision. I think they're going to beat FSU and go to a bowl game, which I think is huge. I just think this one is a little bit too tough of an ask. And if Ole Miss had just gotten killed by Georgia or something like that, I'd probably be talking a little bit differently about this. But I'm more impressed with Ole Miss than I was a couple weeks ago. And I just think it's a little bit much right now for a team that I think is mostly just kind of operating on like good vibes and energy sort of at the moment. Like I hate to say that, but it's kind of a power of friendship type team right now with all the injuries that they have. I think maybe that luck runs out a bit here. I don't think they get killed. I think it's a close game. I'll say like Ole Miss pulls away with a late touchdown to win like 31-20.
31-20. Could this game be first to 30 points? I mean, I don't really like doing that, but I mean, it might be. I have Florida 30-27. Okay. We just haven't seen this Ole Miss team win those close games. And if Florida can make this a close game, I mean, Lagway's won them. I mean, even Kentucky, like we won it by 28 points. It was a 14-point game in the fourth quarter. So we saw him make the big plays to pull away. Saw against LSU, made the big plays to take the lead in the fourth quarter and call a ball game on them. So I'm going to take the Gators and to pull the upset. And